I've been on a bunch of different teams. I want to say 11. So I've been able to see how a good organization works, how a good team works, and what you need for each. Having good veterans on your team is so necessary for having a good organization.
Welcome to the CJ McCollum Show. We are recording in Denver the day before we play the Nuggets. This will actually come out Thursday morning before we play the Nuggets. We want to welcome our special guest, Garret Temple, and Izzy Gutierrez, as always, across the screen from me. While we're here, I think it's important that we obviously talk about the season, the Pelicans, how we've done so far, but we want to talk a little bit about Garrett's story. Garret, born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, went to LSU Laboratory School. Am I saying this right? University High, where he won a state championship. He was the king of the long jump and the triple jump, or is it high jump and the triple jump?
Long jump and triple jump. And I wouldn't say king, but I will say we won 2 state championships, not just one.
Oh, my bad. So you won 2 state championships. You went on to go to LSU. And I think it's important for those that don't know your story, they hear a little bit about your story and your family's history at LSU. But I want to know, as a Louisiana native, what it was like to go to LSU and kind of represent the Temple name for your family.
Yeah. First of all, appreciate you having me, bro. Great to see you, Israel. LSU legacy started even before me, before my brother, my oldest brother, who went there as well, and before my dad, who was the first Black basketball player there. My grandfather actually tried to get his master's degree at LSU after getting his undergrad at Southern University, which is the HBCU in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. In the late 40s, he tried to get his master's at LSU, and they wouldn't let him come to school there because he was Black. Thurgood Marshall had a class action lawsuit that he was about to, bring to Supreme Court about state schools in the South not allowing Black students to go to school there. And my grandfather was about to add LSU to the mix, and the state legislature put together some funds to pay for him to go to any school he wanted to go to, as long as it wasn't LSU. So they paid for him, the state paid for him to go to Michigan State University, where he got his master's degree. And that was in the early 50s when he graduated.
Wait a second. So the state decided, rather than just let him go to LSU, that they will pay for him to ship out and go learn somewhere else.
Anywhere else.
Anywhere else, as long as you don't put us in this class action lawsuit, we'll pay for you to go anywhere else. You don't have to pay for school to come here where we don't want you. We'll pay for you to go anywhere else. So my dad had 5 older sisters. He was the youngest son, the only son, the youngest. So he was like 4 years old when my grandfather graduated from Michigan State, going in the summers and stuff. So it was like 56, say, right? And 13 years later, after my dad's senior year in high school, which was his first year going to school with white people, integrating in 69, the governor, again, the state intervened, and the governor came and recruited my dad to go to LSU. Not the basketball coach, not the athletic director, the governor of Louisiana recruited my dad to go to LSU to integrate the program. And knowing what my grandfather had gone through, he still asked him. And my grandfather, I can say, it was a lot more forward thinking than I would have been, or a lot of people would have been, and pushed my dad to go integrate the school in 1970. He went there 4 years, was the only Black basketball player on the team for all 4 years. Dale Brown came, the legendary Dale Brown came his junior year and made him automatic captain, which ruffled a lot of feathers, of players and teammates. But the rest is history. My dad got drafted to the NBA, ABA, NFL. We ended up playing with the Spurs for a year with George Gervin, and then stayed in Baton Rouge. And my oldest brother went there. We grew up a half mile from campus, so I knew the campus of LSU like the back of my hand by the time I was 6, 7 years old, riding bikes around through campus with my older brothers. My oldest brother, Collis, was the ball boy when Shaquille O'Neal and at the time Chris Jackson, now known as Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, was going there.
Great documentary on Showtime.
Amazing documentary about it. Amazing. I was never a ball boy, but I can remember walking in the practice gym and seeing and hearing about 12 balls bouncing, but you walk in and it's just Chris working out by himself. So LSU was always there. I went to U High. Around
LSU Laboratory School sounds like a made-up school. Let's be honest.
It does. We had 75 people in my graduating class. 74 because one of my boys didn't graduate with us. He graduated in the summertime. But when I was 9 or 10 years old, I met a guy named Big Baby Davis, and we, ended up. My dad was our AAU coach, summer basketball coach, and he ended up moving in with us for a couple of years in high school. Went to LSU Lab with me, and we won a state championship as sophomores. Got the big head as juniors, lost in the semis by 1, and then came and redeemed ourselves in the as seniors and beat that same team by 35 in the finals. So that was our high school team was really good. We had 4 D1 players, 5, 3 pro athletes on that team, and we ended up, I want to say, 12th in the nation in high school. But I was my senior year, I averaged maybe 15 points, but about 10 assists a game. I was playing point guard. Always grew up as a very unselfish player, sometimes to a fault. So when I went to LSU, redshirting, my oldest brother had gone there. And he didn't go my oldest brother didn't take any other visits. Myself, my brother wore 41 just like my dad. I was kind of wanting to be a little rebel. So I visited Oregon. I visited Baylor. Scott Drew, his first season there. Jerome Tang was the main guy recruiting me. It was his first season there. Shout out to Jay Tang, done a great job with Kansas State. But I was trying to maybe create my own path. But at the end of the day, I knew I wanted to go to LSU. So I ended up committing. So it was me, Glenn, and a guy named Tyrus Thomas, kind of an unknown. And Tyrus and I redshirted my freshman year. Brandon Bass was also there. And going into the redshirt freshman year, the year I actually started playing, we had some high expectations because we were 6th. We were 6th seed the year before, but we had 2 seniors leave. We had the SEC Player of the Year and Brandon Bass leave. And Tyrus was an unknown come out. Nobody knew what Tyrus was going to do. And a lot of people thought Garret Temple was coming just because his dad went here and his brother went here, to be honest with you. So as a team, we knew what we could do, but nobody else really did. In that freshman year, we shocked some people. We went, I want to say 27-6, won the SEC outright, 14-2. Beat my current coach, Corey Brewer's Florida Gators in the regular.
Those are my Gators too.
Season. In the SEC regular season, we didn't beat them, but we won their regular season. They beat us they won the SEC tournament, and we got
actually have that box score up right now.
Yeah,
you had 17.
Oh no, that was my sophomore year.
Oh, okay.
When we were trash, I don't even know how we beat them when they came back, but we played really well. We beat our run to the Final Four, like college basketball, the selection show comes out. So this was JJ Redick's senior year, Adam Morrison senior year, right? They were the 2 guys. And I was a defender. That's what I was known for as my freshman year. Averaged like 5-6 points a game. And I used to watch JJ, his highlights, and think to myself, why are people letting him shoot? Why don't they make him drive? Like, why not press up on him? Like, he shoots too well. So the selection show comes on. We get the 4 seed, and the 1 seed in our bracket is Duke. So my brother calls me. My oldest brother, Collis, calls me because I've been having these conversations with him, and he says, well, now you get your chance. If y'all win 2 games, y'all probably going to play Duke. And I'm going to come because it's going to be in Atlanta. So I was like, okay. We play Iona in the first round, 13 seed, and they almost beat us. We down by a lot in the first half. Glenn picks it up and turns on the Glenn. Second half, we win. We play a Texas A&M team who knocked out Jerry McNamara and them in the first round. So I think they were an 11 seed. AC Law was a problem for them at one point. Fast guard, ended up playing the league probably 7-8 years. Our senior guards hits a 28-footer from 3 to go up by 2 and win the game with 4 seconds left. So we scurry past them, and then we get to the Sweet 16, and we got Duke on our in our sights. And
I'm going to pause you real quick.
Yeah,
because before you say what JJ Redick did in that game, I want CJ, if he doesn't know, to guess. All right, but go ahead. So don't give the stats. Don't give what JJ did, but just go ahead from there.
Okay. You want to guess, CJ? Or?
What do you think his shooting numbers were in that game, JJ?
JJ had a good game.
All right. I'll say he was averaging 27.3, I think. He was player of the year that year. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
He had 20. Yeah, I think he had 25.
25. All right.
CJ, he was 3 for 18, 11 points, 4 turnovers, 2 free throws.
He was in prison.
Yeah. So the game plan was don't leave him. And I played the entire game. I didn't come out once. His first 3, I remember to this day, the first 3 he made was a fast break. I think they stole the ball, and I was in the opposite corner. So he ran down the slot, the wing, and I wasn't guarding him. He hit a 3. And I was like, he had just missed, I want to say 2 or 3.
All 3 of his makes were 3s. He made no 2s. Yeah.
All 3 of his makes were 3s, and he made 2 free throws. So yeah, I was lucky to have Tyrus Thomas in the back, so I could just swarm him, force him down there, and he was the block shot king, batting everything coming his way. Sheldon Williams had an amazing game, but we did a job on JJ, 3 for 18. Yeah, I think that's kind of what got me on the map in terms of people trying to paying attention to me. And then the next game we played against Texas. So we played against LaMarcus Aldridge, PJ Tucker, who was the Big 12 Player of the Year, Daniel Gibson, and we beat them in overtime. And we make it to the Final Four, where UCLA is waiting for us. And Anna Flalo, Jordan Farmar, Luke Bamute, Ryan Hollins, they were just stacked with pros, and they lit us up. We couldn't score. And then, so that was my freshman year, and it was definitely a year to remember because of who I was playing with. I think the top 7 guys in the rotation were all from a 50-mile radius of Baton Rouge. We had known each other since 9th, 10th grade. So it was special to play with those guys. And then I had 2 terrible years, and then my senior year we played really well as well. We won SEC, got a terrible 8 seed, and lost to the eventual champion North Carolina in the second round. Yeah. So we beat
Gordon Hayward.
Beat Gordon Hayward and Shelvin Mack in the first round, 8-9 Butler, and the president of the Boston Celtics right now. But we played Ty Lawson and Wayne Ellington and Danny Green and them, and Ty had 22 in the second half, I want to say, and they beat us. But LSU was great. I was, very glad that I went there. Obviously, my freshman year, for example, I redshirted my first year. Most people that come back after redshirt, they play maybe, even if they start, they don't play a lot. In the tournament, in the 4 games in the tournament, I averaged 41 minutes a game.
An overtime game. Then.
So, yeah. So I left LSU as the leading, most minutes played in history of the school. But I still didn't even have 1,000 points. That's just, the type of player I was. Somebody told me a stat. There are 2 players in LSU history that have over 900 points, 500 blocks, 500 assists, 100 steals, and 100 something else. And it was me and Pete Maravich. So, wow. I give a lot of credit to my coach, John Brady, who was there my first basically 3 years, and then we had Trent Johnson my last year. But Coach Brady, instilled a lot of confidence in me, as that my value was still that my game, the way that I played, had value. And because a lot of guys now, they don't really understand that you don't have to score to have value for a team at all levels of basketball. But obviously, it's very difficult to understand that when you're in the NBA, because most of the guys that made it here are that guy. They were the scorer. So
I know CJ wants to get there, but I did want to ask you something real quick, because you gave us a lot of information there, and it was kind of jarring for me, frankly, because I know some of it. I just didn't know all the details. But first of all, explains a lot why it feels like you've been in the league forever, because I remember your freshman year, because I'm a Gator, and that Final Four was like, that was their big year. So it's like, man, Garret Temple's been around forever. Oh, yeah, that was college. Never mind. But when it comes to your dad, did he talk to you about like the balancing, sort of the social, weight that he was carrying, along with, hey, I'm going to get an education and play basketball? Like, did he talk to you about like sort of the pressures of balancing both of those?
Oh, no question. All the time. He has stories. He's a great storyteller, but he definitely explained, how challenging it was. There was an SEC story that came out during the SEC tournament this year that talked about that, and we watched it together. And as recent as 2 weeks ago, he talked about how he talked to his dad and wanted to quit after his freshman year. People sliding notes under his door and things of that nature, but having to have the wherewithal and the will to keep going, looking at the bigger picture, and understanding that he came from an education-based family, so he knew how important getting that degree would be. But yeah, it was very difficult for him as a 17-year-old going into college. It's tough when you got to go to basketball practice with people that don't like you, and then you walk through the quad, and David Duke is talking about how neo-Nazis are the way and things of that nature, and you don't have any friends. You got to go to Southern. It's a difficult thing to do when you're 18, 19 years old. So he definitely talked about those challenges.
So with all that happening, all that being said, your dad decides to go there. You decide to go there. Your brother goes there before you. You guys all carve out, careers, great careers in your own right. Now you have a way in which you'll be remembered forever, if you will, based on what you showed me, which is really cool. So we'll touch on that in a second. But I want to talk about something you brought up earlier: having impact on teams and having a role without scoring. Let's talk about the importance of being able to carve out roles on teams, right? And how hard that's been for a lot of players to adjust to getting to the NBA, right? Because you start off playing in the G League. People don't know that you spent some time in Italy, right? I think you played 28 games or 29 games in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. You come back to the NBA and you carve out a 14-year career playing different roles, whether that's starting, whether that's getting DNPs, whether that's coming off the bench. You've done all those things. What advice do you have for guys out there who are trying to carve out a role besides scoring? Because as we know, across the league, every team got, at least two guys that can get 29, or that probably are, maybe three, and then other guys that are capable but aren't provided that opportunity.
No question. So honestly, it may sound crazy, but I think it's easier for a guy like me to have a 12 to 15-year career than it is a guy that, may have been the leading scorer on his team, first team all SEC or all Big 12, but was a 26 pick and was going to be a rotational 6-man player his whole career. Because I haven't had to change my game. I've been, you have to understand, talk about a guy like Pat Bev. He was he was 2 years younger than me. He was a scorer out of high school and college, freshman of the year, but changed his game to be a defender and knew exactly what he needed to do to carve something out in this league. I was talking to Willie Green the other night. We talk about what's his name, the defender for the Grizzlies for the longest, Tony
Allen.
Tony Allen went to Oklahoma State, was a scorer, but understood what he needed to do to carve out his. Doc was drafting Tony Allen with the Celtics as a scorer,
yep.
But then they realized what they had in him as a defender, and that's what his role was. There are a lot of guys in the league that can score really well, but this is the NBA, and in order to be that, a part of that 3-person group that gets to have the green light on your team, you have to be elite. And me and CJ saw an elite guy, some elite people last night. It's hard to be a CJ McCollum to average 20 a game in the NBA consistently for that many years efficiently. That's not on a winning team. Not many people can do that. So you have to be realistic, and you have to have people in your corner that understand that and can tell you the truth. And there are people that can grow into that, grow into what Jimmy Butler did. So I think most young guys need to understand you need to figure out a way, ask your coach, what do I need to do to get on the court? More times than not, it's going to be play defense, play hard, do the little things. Continue to work on your game when in your own time in the offseason, your offensive game. But figure out a way to get on the court first. Then the rest will take care of itself. And
when can you start doing that? Because I just had this conversation with some guys that run Overtime Elite over in Atlanta, and there's a lot of 5 stars. They show up there and they're just like, well, I'm not this guy, so I'm gonna have to be a role player on this team. And they think of it as a failure, as like, oh man, maybe I'm not going to be a pro. Like, can you make that adjustment that early and just, hey, either say I'm going to be a specialist or I have to focus on 1 or 2 specific skills?
It depends. I think, the maturity level of the player determines when somebody can and can't do it. I think, like I said, I kind of made that change when I was probably 11th grade, 12th grade. But I had a guy that was so much better than all of us that I just said, okay, I'm gonna pass him the ball. Like I can't do what he can do for our team. He needs to do that. I think the guys like at Overtime Elite, they have some guys that are just better. And they need to just, like I said, be real with themselves and understand I'm trying to make a living doing this. And I think if they hear more stories like mine, that they can understand that. Because, all you hear about, even to this day now, about scoring, being the man, da 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 da. But you don't hear about stories like mine, 14 years as a pro, like a Ronnie Price, 13 years, like a Ramon Sessions, these type of guys that carved out a niche, carved out something in the league. Ish Smith, by doing it in a different way that, we may be on who he played for, but we still 14 years in the, 14 years as pros. And I know a lot of guys that were talented as hell, way more talented than me, that because they did not get that, they played 5 years in the league and they had talent to play, 15.
Do you get pissed when people people bring up the who he played for thing? Because I think you've been on there a few times.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
No.
I was out actually at All-Star and I saw Chuck. So we joked about it. But not at all. It's funny.
You talk about how your senior season ends, right? Most minutes in the history of most minutes in the history of LSU's program. Defensively, creating that mindset, being able to do whatever it takes to win. You go to the G League, you play in the G League, you end up going to Italy for a year. What was your thought process like when you went to Europe? And did you think in the front end that your career would end up the way it is on the back end 14 years later? I know we talk a lot about the differences in life and where it takes you and how, if someone would have told you a book of how life would be at 35, you wouldn't necessarily believe it. Talk to me about your thought process 12 years ago-ish when you were in Italy to now.
Yeah. It was different, man. Like you said, it was different. It was unique. And in that I was in the G League, didn't get drafted. Got a few cups of coffee in the NBA. I was on 5 different teams in the NBA my first 2 years, 10-day contracts and things of that nature. And the lockout hit my 3rd season. And I didn't have a lot of money to sit on. So I decided to go to Italy for the entire season. And my agent wasn't a guy that was in that, adept at a lot of the European stuff. So I was on the worst team in the first division. They had just made it up, so we didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of resources. I did enjoy the location because I was central. I was an hour from Milan. I was in northern Italy. I enjoyed the location in that regard. Let me say, it was a small country town. So walking around, people looked at me like I was an alien. There weren't many Black people there at all. One time, I realized one lady was cursing me out. You know, once one of my teammates told me exactly what she was saying when I'd walk through her kind of parking lot. But it was an experience, and I'm glad I had the experience. You know, I pulled my hamstring there, and it wasn't handled quite the right way, and I did it again. You know, I re-injured it. But I stuck it out. I stayed the entire time. I went there July. I got back in May. Stayed the entire time. I didn't know that leaving there was no like, oh, now I'm good. Now I'm gonna be an NBA player. Not at all. Our season was bad. You know, we lost a lot of close games. Matt Janney was my teammate who's carved out an amazing career overseas. I'm happy for him. But I didn't realize that when I got back here, I went to training camp with Miami, and they had just won their first championship. So I was in training camp when they were about to, go on to win their second championship. And a teammate of mine in the G League was Terrell Harris, who was on their team when they won. And I was fighting for him. I fought for the guard spot with him, and they gave it to him instead. So at that point, I was pretty low because I had outplayed him, but it was the politics. He was on the team before and things of that nature. And, my dad talked to me in Miami, I want to say the day after I got cut. And we had a candid conversation. My game is not built for Italy. I mean, for overseas, I'm not just a 25-point scorer. Do I believe I could play in the NBA? And I said, yeah, for sure. I know I can. So we said, well, we're going to keep going, and you're going to keep going. Went to the D League one more time with Reno, and then DC called me up. And actually, people don't know this. When DC called me up, Miami tried to get me back. And so the Wizards were 3-22. Miami was coming off a championship, about to win their second probably. They had just added Ray Allen. And I chose to go to DC because I would get actual playing time and a chance to actually play and try to carve out, a niche in the league. And Eric Spoelstra, I felt like I was in college again. Spo was calling me, trying to recruit me. David Fisdale was calling me, trying to recruit me. But I stayed with DC, and the rest is history. Spo to this day still tells me, you bet on yourself, man. And I respect the hell out of that because it's worked out for you. So at that point is when I knew, obviously, that I belonged in this league. But Italy was difficult, but it was an experience I'm glad I went through.
That's crazy. So you had a chance to go to the Miami Heat after they decided to go with Terrell Harris. You decided to go to the Wizards, who were 3-22 at that point in time because you knew you were going to get more playing time. Talk about fate. You talk about making the right decision, taking a leap of hope. You could have got a ring, but you might not have had the same role that you wanted or needed to kind of establish who you are as an NBA player. So you might not have been able to still carve out a long-term career.
Exactly. I mean, Spo told me, he said, Jim, I'm going to tell you straight up. He said, you go to the Wizards, they just cut Sean Livingston. They had just cut Jannero Parker before that. He said, it's like a revolving door for guards. And he said, if you come here, you're not going to play unless Mario or Norris get hurt, because they looked at me as a point. We had me and Spo had a great rapport in training camp. He said, but if we cut you, worst case scenario, if we have a blockbuster deal, then at least people know the Miami Heat cut him. Like they brought him in, they see something. It's not like the Wizards are cutting you because they keep cutting people. Obviously, we know Sean went on to have a great career and go to State after that. But I listened to him, and I still just wanted to bet on myself and actually play, and it worked out. I was there. A lot of credit to Randy Whitman, for playing me. I played the 1 and the 2 there, and I ended up staying there for 4 years, having a great career, and getting my agent out of that deal too. I got real close with Brad. That was his rookie year. We really close to this day. Ended up getting Bartelstein as my agent, and things have happened since then. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's really dope. I appreciate you sharing that. And you talked about the conversations you had with your dad. I want to get more into that for a second and discuss the best advice you've ever been given on the court and off the court. Just a little gem, and then a little bit more detailed stories just in regards to the current situation being in Louisiana with the Pelicans and being from there, and just kind of discuss that. But first, best advice you've been given on and off the court. You can start with from your dad too.
From my pops. So my pops got a lot of these sayings that he got from his dad. One is, you can't get ahead stand in the bed. So he's really big on making sure you get up, do things, don't be a lazy person, have a work.
Did you make your bed? Were you one of those people who made your bed when you got up?
I wasn't, but my oldest brother was. My oldest brother was like the perfect son. It was so crazy, man. It was everything. So, but one thing that my dad says is, you have to work like a slave and think like a master. And it was, that's something that my brother actually wrote a book about it, and the basic premise is you have to have a work ethic. You have to work harder than anybody, but you have to have a mindset about mastering whatever you're doing. You have to have a mindset of an owner operator and think about the big picture. And that's something that I always live by. In terms of on the court, best advice in general, I don't know, man. I mean, I've always lived by, CJ knows I'm a very team-oriented guy. It's all about the squad. It's all about the team. It's a we win, we score, we defend, we win mentality for me. It's always been like that. The communication is key to be able to make sure we're all on the same page. So I think if a team has that type of mentality, the teams that have that type of mentality have a chance to win. If you don't have that type of mentality, you don't have a chance to win at all. And I don't care how talented you are. Now, you have to be talented as well to win. But if you don't have that, then you can't win a championship for sure. But those things are things that I really live by. And it's crazy. My dad was never one of those overbearing fathers that berated you after a game if you didn't play well or always nitpicked on what you did or didn't do. He just sat in stands, chill after the game. He'll maybe say a few words to me, but would ask questions. But one time at my senior year in high school, like I said, I was very, passed the ball a lot to a fault sometimes. So like a summer league game in high school, I had maybe like 4 points and like 14 assists. And he said, we won by like 40. And he said, man, now, gee, I don't really say much to you, but you got to start shooting the ball if you want to, show these schools that you can be a D1 player, man. I said, how many assists I had, bro? He's like, I don't know what. I said, like 13 or 14. We won by 40. That's all that matters. And he said, he's told me a few years ago, like, your mindset is what has kept you in the league, because you're really all about winning. So I think, again, for young guys, if that's your focus, if winning is your focus, like coaches, people that really know basketball see that. It seeps through you. And those are the type of people that people want on their team. Those are the people that are the 5th through 15th guys that stay a long time in the NBA. The ones that are all about winning and do whatever it takes to win. So,
CJ, I don't know if you wanted to get into the stuff from him being in New Orleans now. I did have a college basketball question I wanted to ask, but we can go to that after.
No, you can go college basketball, and then we'll go into New Orleans.
All right, good, because we got, the Final Four coming up. And so I was just curious. Obviously, you had a 5-year, I guess, technically, college career, 4-year college career. And you've been to the Final Four. I just want to get your thoughts on just the quality of college basketball right now. Like, it's so much fun just looking at those box scores that you played on, because, man, I know all those names. Now, I don't know how many of these guys are going to be pros. You got a guy like Noel from Kansas State just lighting up you're like, man, that guy's dope. Oh, he's 5'8". He's probably not going to be much, but he's fun right now. But it's like, where do you see the quality of college basketball at the moment?
I think the quality is better because people can score more. People are more talented. You look at the one thing I would imagine that jumped out on the box scores you see are the points, the score. We were scoring 50-some points, 60-something points. We were very defensive minded, which means we really couldn't score. I couldn't shoot. We had one guy on the team that could shoot. But I think, defense was at a premium then. And I think, the quality, talent is high, but honestly, quality may not be as high because it's so individual oriented more times than not. And, for whatever reason, people are trying to get to the, like you said, get to the NBA. There are not a lot of guys going and thinking they're going to be there for 3 or 4 years if they're any good. Glenn Davis stayed 3 years in school. He came back and played another year. You think about Brew and Joakim and Al and them. They came back and they played 3 years. And that's not people aren't doing that anymore. So I think the talent level when people come in as freshmen, the talent level is higher, but the quality may not be as high because people don't stay long enough. And the transfer portal, you can't build a cohesive group for a long period of time because of the transfer portal. You can just leave whenever you want. Some people, like, we have a teammate, Trey Murphy, who left Rice and went to Virginia. Like, that's something that's good for him. But people that go from, a big school to another big school and they were starting and playing 30 minutes a game, those things I really don't understand. But I think the quality may not be as high because of those factors. And I want to see people play more. I talked to CJ about this. I want to see college men's basketball play with more pace on offense in terms of the sets should be more quick hitting and more like NBA style, in my opinion. Like the Iowa women, they just get to it. The Louisville women. I was watching that game. They just quick hitting plays, and they may be shooting with 18 on the clock, 19 on the clock.
Which is why I think they got a shot against South Carolina, because there's going to be some scoring in that game.
It really will be. So, but I think in that regard, it's twofold. The quality is good at one point. The talent is better. I don't know if the quality is as good.
CJ, you see FAU in the Final Four and think, damn it, I missed my time. Like Lehigh could have made it.
Honestly, if I would have played better against Xavier, we would have went to the Sweet 16 and probably lost to Baylor. That was when Baylor had Pierre Jackson and all of those guys. I think they had a guy that dunks everything. I mean, they were good enough to beat us. But
did they have Tweety Carter there?
Tweety Carter might have been there. He might have been there too. But I know they had Pierre. I know they had
Miss Darius Dunn.
I think Isaiah, what is it? Austin was there. Tall kid with the strap. I think he was there. They were a good team, and I think we were good enough to beat Xavier. We just didn't. I needed to play better. But I do watch college basketball now and think to myself, like G said before, players are younger, but then these teams are getting older because of COVID. You got 25, even in football, you got 25, 26-year-olds because they gave them all those extra years because of COVID. And that's why these teams are able to compete, right, against the blue collar, the top 5 teams in the country. Got a bunch of really good 17, 18, 19-year-olds, but they're playing against 23, 24, 25-year-olds. It's a different game. They're smarter. They understand the offense you talked about. They know how to manipulate the game a little bit better. And that's why you see in some of these small teams and some of these schools take advantage of transfer portals, but also take advantage of the fact that they got a bunch of guys in their mid-20s.
Right.
Bunch of Chris Winkies out there.
Winky, I'm about to say. Chris Winky,
which is
real.
Which is sick. I know we've talked a lot about LSU. We talked a lot about the influence your parents have had on you, your brothers. Talked about professionalism. You talked about not staying in the bed, doing whatever it takes to win. Now let's talk about you being in New Orleans, being a Louisiana native, what it's like to play in New Orleans and how the team, organization, and culture has kind of shifted from what you used to see when you first got into the league compared to when you first got there to now.
Oh, first of all, it's been great. I almost came here after I was playing with DC. So in like 2016, I almost came to New Orleans. And then 2 years ago, Griff reached out and we've had a relationship. And, he wanted me to come and help, be a leader. And obviously you have that Louisiana that Louisiana connection would be great as well. So it's been great being here. I remember being a high schooler coming to watch games at, 2 or 3 games a year from coming from Baton Rouge to watch the games. And now to be able to play and be here has been great. Being an hour from home, I actually commute most of the time. And I get to see my family. I get to be around my family. It's been amazing. I think New Orleans, I can remember, when the Pelicans drafted Zion, it's really changed the culture around the organization. Because after Chris left, even though AD was here, when Chris was here, it was something special. Chris, Tyson, D West, that era was really special for the city. The AD era for, I want to say, a year, especially when they played Golden State in the first round, that was big. But when we drafted Zion, that really, put a lot of hope into the city. And what the team was able to do last year, bringing in CJ and bringing in UC and Larry, and then pushing to be able to make it to that 8th seed and do what we did against Phoenix. I think that shows, what the trajectory could be. And then obviously adding Zion and having him for the first, 30 games and showing what we're able to do when the team is fully healthy gives us even more hope. So it's kind of crazy. The Saints are going to be the Saints, but they're not, they're not the Saints anymore. So people are going to really be paying attention to us more than they would have been. And I think we have a shot to really do something special here in New Orleans once we get Big Fella back healthy, especially the way B.I. has been playing as of late and as close as this Western Conference is. So we need to just go ahead, win the next 6 seed, and then, get to like the 5th or 6th seed and not even worry about a play-in, and then we just do what we do. But it's been great. It's been amazing. Obviously, it's something special. There's a little more to it when it's your home state. And I've seen this whole, I was alive and well before the organization was even here. So it's great to see it thrive and get to this point.
Don't sleep on Derek Carr, man. I don't know. The Saints could do something.
I hope so. I would love for that to happen. I would love for that to happen.
There's obviously been a lot of things happening across the league lately with off-court activities for players, and there's been discussions and conversations around the importance of veterans, the importance of having veterans in your roster, kind of lead young guys to teach them the do's and don'ts, the ins and outs of the league, and how to be successful while still remaining true to who you are. Just want you to briefly discuss the importance of having veterans, what that's kind of done for our team in New Orleans, and then talk about some of the younger teams across the league and how impactful veterans can be, especially off the court, taking them out to dinner, being able to talk to them, the accountability aspect, all those things.
Nah, it's very important. See, when we first got in the league, we had legit veterans, vets of teams, and obviously the league was older when we got into the league. But it's so necessary. I tell everybody this. I've been on a bunch of different teams. I want to say 11. So I've been able to see how a good organization works, how a good team works, and what you need for each. Having good veterans on your team is so necessary for having a good organization and a good team, both on and off the court. I think having guys that teach people how to be professionals in all aspects, on and off the court, that's something that's so needed. And you don't know unless somebody teaches you. There's no way for you to know. I don't care how talented you are or what. There's no way for you to know unless somebody teaches you. So having the right veterans on your team to be able to, as C said, bring you out to dinner, explain to you how to get a routine. CJ and I talk to our rookies and the young guys right now about having a routine, especially at the beginning of the season, establishing a routine, because it's so much easier when you have that structure in place. Your body becomes on autopilot and you just get used to what things you need to do to get ready for a game. If you don't have a veteran that has been through it, you wouldn't know. If you don't have a veteran that's played in the playoffs, you don't know, what the feelings will be or how to, take those emotions and those feelings and try to, funnel them into a way that can be positive for your game. So, not to mention, obviously, understanding how to do things off the court, how to go out, how to go to the club, ways to move in a way that is not damaging to your reputation, but also allows you to just do what you want to do at the same time. You don't have to be, a person in a fishbowl. You can do things, you can do what you want to do, but there are ways to do it and not damage your reputation. So the teams that don't have them, I mean, CJ and I are in the midst of doing some things to try to make sure we can create incentives to have teams have veterans on their squad. The teams that don't have them, it shows both on and off the court. And I think it really will show in the future when these stars, are in their fourth, fifth, sixth year, and they may be all stars, but they may not really know how to win. One guy I talk about all the time, one of my teammates is DeMarcus Cousins, one of my guys. We had a great relationship when we were together. I was only there for half a year. They traded him halfway through the year. But, you talk about a guy that came in and was at Kentucky one year, went to multiple different high schools and had, I want to say, 6 different head coaches, 3 different GMs, 2 different owners in his first 7 years in the league. Was a 5-time All-Star, I want to say, 3-time, 4-time All-NBA. So once you get to him in year 6 or 7, it's kind of too late. He's already going to think to himself, what else do you want me to do? I'm All-NBA. I'm the best center in the league. There's nothing else I need to do. We need to just get players to help me. And he may not know, he didn't know how to win or how to be a leader. And, me, myself, Matt Barnes, we had conversations with him about this. But, especially nowadays, veterans are very important now, especially because coaches have less power. Head coaches have less power because the players have more power. Nowadays, if a coach wants to coach too hard and a player doesn't like it, he's the star, he may get that coach out of there. That's just the reality of the league. So coaches are in a tougher spot now. So they may not be able to hold, stars, the young, 21-year-old that's about to sign a max deal accountable because he may not like that. And I don't want to play for you no more. So having a vet that can step in and be that bad guy is very, very important in this league, especially now, in my opinion.
Udonis Haslem. It's the first name I think of.
Udonis.
By the way, only 10 teams. 10 teams. You played for SAC twice.
Okay, 10 teams. Cool. Appreciate that.
And real quick, just a random quiz because I asked CJ this last time. Do you know how old Steven Adams is?
It's crazy. I looked it up the other day because somebody was like, he's so young. I was like, really? I think he's 29 or 30, right?
He's 29. Yeah.
Crazy. The fact that Steven is not 30 years old is insane.
It looks like he was born 30. You're right.
Allegedly.
Right.
Allegedly 29.
Look at him. Allegedly.
Just kidding.
All right. So what happened last night? What was that? And everything from you guys are feeling good. It seemed like the team meeting had done its job and won some games. And then just the I guess I don't want to say collapse, but the comeback by Golden State, and then Draymond seems to be kind of running his mouth a little bit. But what's new? What happened?
Right, Draymond was Draymond. I mean, I'll talk to you from my point of view, my perspective. I think this was the first time that most of our young guys had played against Steph, and Steph did Steph things in the second half. I think the third quarter, Dante DiVincenzo had some big plays that impacted the game, that gave them momentum. Tip back dunk, another offensive rebound, and then Looney had some big offensive rebounds. Again, those are the type of things when you're in Golden State, especially in Oracle, but now in Chase Center, when they get offensive rebounds, they kick out to threes, and when it's Steph when Steph is the recipient of the kickouts and he's wide open, it just does something to that arena and to their team. And it does something of the negative effect to your team. Everybody talks about momentum shots, but when he's the one shooting it, and Golden State's momentum threes are a little different than anybody else's, especially when they're at home. And I think that's honestly what happened personally. Not to mention our turnovers in the third quarter and fourth quarter. So I'll let Steve say what he saw being on the court.
I think they just showed championship pedigree. They're historically a great third quarter team. They got off to a great start in the third quarter. I think they went on a 7-0 run. We had 2 turnovers. We gave offensive rebound. Talked about a tip dunk. The little plays, I think, shifted the momentum of the game. And then it just came down to us missing shots and then making shots. And obviously, they're very good at home, first of all. They play really well at home. They're a different team on the road. And when you allow a team that's that good offensively to have multiple chances to score, it's hard enough to stop them once. It's not only demoralizing to your team, but it's exhausting when you're on a back-to-back and you got to guard for 2 possessions, 3 possessions. And I think it just took its toll. We didn't execute as well as we should have offensively. I missed some open shots. We had some turnovers. But I think all in all, we competed. We gave ourselves a chance. We just allowed a couple of runs to spiral and really impacted us on the other end. And when you don't get stops against the Warriors and you got to take the ball out of half court, they're a really good defensive team in half court. You got to be able to get stops, to generate transition, to generate baskets when their defense is not set, because they're very good in the half court. And I think that was the difference. In the first half, we got on a ran. We got stops. It was easier to score. In the second half, we got bogged down. Couple turnovers, couple plays where the pace, you talked about the pace in college basketball, pace wasn't the same because we walk it up, try to get the play call, trying to make sure everybody hears the play call. Next thing you know, it's 15 on the clock. You're down to a late clock and having to play in ISO situations. And you want to do that sometimes, but you don't want to have to lead on that too heavily. And I think we had to do a lot of things that weren't a part of our game plan originally because we didn't get stops, because we gave up second chance opportunities. And I think that changed the game a lot.
Bomani's been on the podcast. Bomani calls DiVincenzo White Dante. You and him got into it a little bit, I think. What was there anything interesting there?
Just normal basketball.
Normal?
Man.
Okay. I didn't really see that part. All I know is like Draymond said some stuff and I wasn't a big fan of it.
I just want to go on the record saying Draymond was talking trash first. I love how he tried to flip it on me and say that like I got them going. Like, no, I didn't. You was talking great. You was talking crazy. And I was just not going to allow that to go down. It's just like I can't let that go down, man. So no, I'm not having that. And you credit them; they responded well. But for the DiVincenzo play, he plays really hard. He's a great fit for them, and that was just one of those plays where Clay was about to get open 3. So like you can't. It's momentum. It's momentum in the Chase Center, and Clay had been missing some looks, right? Like he didn't shoot particularly well, and I didn't want him to get a corner 3 coming off a screen. So I had 2 choices. I could run around the screen, let him shoot, or run through the screen. And the way they was playing, as we get closer to the playoffs, it's a physical game. So there's going to be hard fouls. There's going to be those types of plays. And I ran through the screen instead of running around it. And that's
which is hilarious, because if Draymond does that exact same thing, they're like, wow, Dre really, led us to a victory by doing whatever it took to, because he does that stuff all the time. He blows up plays with his body, gets a foul call, whatever. And they look at it as, hey, he's helping us. And it's just like, oh, he sees that and you do that. And he thinks the exact opposite.
Well, they got mad. And I think it's just it's just the response. And I'm just like, look, man, I'm just out here trying to win, man. None of this stuff really, like, y'all can talk all y'all want. We just trying to get a win and get up out of here. This is a back-to-back for us. Like, y'all was resting last night. We was playing last night. And we trying to get this win and get out of here. So please stop reviewing all these plays, because it's just making the day. This is drawing the day on longer. And people that know me know me. Like, I compete, I play hard, and that's just the way I am. So I don't really have, like, the talk is whatever. I'm 31 years old, man. I got a kid at home. Like, I don't have, like, you talking. Like, we all got, our own private lives, and what's on the court is on the court, and then you go home and you live your normal life. But I would expect them to do the same thing to me, and I'm sure they would have if they'd had a chance.
And then you got Clay just coming in every single time, just kind of lurking, like you said. CJ always trying to instigate. Garrett, does it feel different then? Because playing for this team, because like not every, LeBron has Cleveland, right? He has the Cavaliers, but not everybody has a hometown team that they feel this sort of depth of, emotion for. Is that, are the Pelicans too young of a team for you to feel that? Or are you like, is it a different feeling there playing for this organization?
It's a different feeling. But I don't think it's the feeling that I would have had if they were the team when I was born, that we had an NBA team there. Like I said, I remember when the team came and then went to OKC because of Katrina and things of that nature. I didn't grow up a Pelicans fan. You know what I'm saying? I was a Lakers fan.
Okay.
Because of Shaquille. I really was a fan of whoever Shaquille was on, because I had a relationship with him when he was at LSU. When I was growing up, I was 4, 5, 6. I saw Shaq come to the house and stuff. So, but it definitely is very different than just being on a normal team, for sure, because of the people. I know the people. I know the language. I know the culture. It's my culture, and so it's just great to see us and my people, our culture, having a chance to make some things happen.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Perfecto. Well, G, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man, sharing some gems. But not only myself, but Izzy and the rest of our listeners. I think it's fascinating to learn a little bit about the Temple history in terms of what your grandfather went through, being encouraged to go to Michigan State, and then them actually coming back, the governor actually coming back to request that your father go and play at LSU. So I appreciate you sharing some of those gems. Obviously, appreciate being your teammate. The professionalism that you show is greatly appreciated for our locker room, and it helps a lot of younger guys and talk about accountability and all those things, and being able to say the stuff that everybody may not necessarily always want to say, but also more importantly, being another voice besides mine, because I don't want to be the old father in the locker room that's always speaking, because that gets kind of drowned out. But
when you tell those stories, Garrett, make sure to mention the years, because people think that was so long ago, and it's like, no, like I lived through those years that your dad's talking about. You know what I mean? It's insane to think about.
Facts, for sure. Nah, I appreciate y'all having me, man. And also, Izzy, great to officially meet you and be on the pod. And CJ, obviously, it's always a pleasure, brother. We had a relationship before this, and we'll have one after this. But nah, being a 36-year-old, soon to be 37, I'll gladly be that old father in the locker room, bro.
Perfect, man. You get you some rest, man. I'm gonna head to the spa. It's time for the steam room to sign before dinner.
Hey, bro.
See you guys.
All right, see you, Izzy.